Okay, and now we are finally ready to continue. I had to install Maya again, so I got the Arnold tab. So now I have the render engine, which all of you should have already. So you can find the Arnold from the toolbar tab here. It says Arnold. Oh, yeah. So the tab is here, and the icons on that tab are looking like this. And we are mainly using only two tools from this tab. So we are using create an area light here on the furthest left, and then we are using the render button. So to get our mock rendered, we need to, of course, put lights to the scene. So if you click the icon here, create area light, you will notice that on the outliner there appears area light 1. And then if you press W, you can move it out from the origin because currently it's inside of the mark when you create it. Our light is kind of small at the moment. So the thing what we have to do is press R, and we can scale it on Y-axis, and after that we can scale it on X-axis. So basically when you are building lighting in 3D scene, the light should be a bit bigger than the actual object what you are lighting. And now I'm moving light on the left side of my mark. After that, I'm duplicating that light with Shift D. So when I have this light highlighted here and I press Shift D, I can duplicate it. And then I'm pressing W and moving the light to the other side of the mark. So we are building here basic to 2-point light lights, studio lighting. But the problem here when we move this from the left side to the right side of the mark is that the spike of the lamp or our area light is showing now to the direction uh, of the mark. So we have to press E and then rotate this on the y-axis so we get the spike point to the our mug. And that's the most important things what you have to remember with the lights. Always point the spike to the object. Okay, and you can modify these lights later on. The most important thing is that they are there now. And now we can actually turn on the rendering window. So you are turning on the rendering window by pressing this render, where is this small play button. This image will continuous, or if you press this button it will turn on the window where it continuously refresh the rendering view. If you are pressing icon with the eye, it renders it only once, and that's not something what we don't want, because we want to see continuously refreshing image, which means basically that our uh, computer is continuously rendering and it's a bit heavy. So let's see how my streaming computer will handle this. So mouse left, clicking it. Currently our scene is whole black, and that's because our light intensity is quite low. So I'm selecting another of my lights, so area light 2, and then I'm opening the attribute editor here next to the hammer, and then there is intensity. So when I have my light active, I have this intensity here, and I probably type here around 500 to see if there is some difference, and there is definitely some difference. So I increase the intensity of my light and it will appear on the render view. Okay. Then I will click my area light 1 to be active, and here on the tab I'm going to change the intensity to be 750, so a little bit brighter than the right side. And now I have built the basic lighting for my scene. And as you can see, if I'm now zooming in and moving around the scene, it's continuously renders our view. Current material what we have on our mug is not photorealistic, or I don't mean photorealistic, it's not based on the ray rendering, which means it's kind of light. So that's why the computer doesn't have to do so much work, or doesn't have to make much effort to render it out. And we can see that the render time here is quite fast. But if we click our mug to be active, we can actually turn off the render view, and we can apply the Arnold material, which is based on ray rendering and will be more photorealistic and more heavier for the Maya to handle. So I click this mug base to be active, and then I press down mouse's right, and I have to bit move my mug up so I can see my whole options or drop down menu, and I come down here where it says assign new material, and then I just release my mouse on top of it, and it gives me assign new material window. There is Maya default shaders here, but the thing where what I want to select is I go here in the Arnold section, and it gives bunch of materials for me. But the usual material what you want to use with Arnold is AE standard surface. Sometimes you might use AE standard hair, but usually you use AE standard surface. And now you can see when you have selected it that it changes. The color changes, and then the material changes. Now, here on the attribute editor, so if you open the attribute editor, we can modify the our material, and easiest modification at this point is go up here to the presets, and it gives bunch of predefined shaders for us, and if I remember correctly, here should be something like ceramic. Yeah. So here is ceramic, and you just select from this drop down menu replace. So now Arnold will automatically replace our settings with the ceramic settings. And now if we render, it consumes a bit more time and it looks a bit more nicer. So this is really 101 of rendering in Arnold. The one thing what we could add for this is the plane where the mug stands. So if we close this rendering window and then I'm pressing down my spacebar and I go into the create, polygon primitives and plane, and then I press R to scale my plane, and now I'm taking the render out of this. I have something where the mark could reflect shadows and the light could reflect shadows. And then if I modify the place of the mark a bit so it touches the surface, like this. Then I can wait a bit that it's render the whole image. And when it doesn't say any more rendering down here left corner, I can press up here file, and then I can select save image, and I can say mock render and put it on the desktop. And now I have turned my 3D scene to be 2D image. If I close the render view, and now I have mock render.jpg. JPEG. So this is the fastest way to turn your 3D scene to 2D image, what you can put into your portfolio. But only basic objects with default shaders are quite dull. So that's why the next step, what we are doing, after the break is that we are going to do the UV unwrapping and adding the texture map for this object. So it looks even more nicer and even more realistic. And we are also going to use HDR lighting for that.